Just look at it. Look how happy it is. It's such a quirky little car. Look what's finally here. It's the new Honda E, and it's probably one of the most exciting and highly anticipated cars of the whole year. Now, I saw this thing back at the 2017 Frankfurt Motor Show when it was called the Urban EV, and it was this kind of retro-looking, seriously cool concept car that was aimed at people who wanted to cut their emissions but lived in a more urban environment. It's now morphed into this thing, the production spec Honda E, and while it's a little bit more rounded at the edges and has gained an extra set of doors, it is still one of the coolest cars that is set to go on sale. Yes Auto are among some of the first people to test drive it in the UK, so let's go and see what it's like. Now let's kick things off with the design, because when this thing goes on sale, it'll be one of the funkiest looking cars on Britain's roads. Now, I particularly love the front of the car. It's got a very happy, welcoming face, but there's some kind of serious retro-iness to it. It almost looks like a panda's face, highlighted by the two circular LED headlights that just make the car look welcoming. You just want to almost pet it. Next up are the wing mirrors, or I should say wing cameras. So the Honda E does away with a conventional wing mirror and instead replaces it with two cameras, one either side of the car, which relays a video feed into the cockpit. And the reason Honda's done this is not only to clean up the look of the car, but also to clean up the airflow going over it. So a conventional wing mirror is quite a large thing and provides quite a lot of wind resistance. So if you're able to do this little fin, you're able to dramatically reduce the resistance over the car, and that will help you eke out even more power from the battery. Going on to the rest of the car, you have a door with a pop-out handle, which is very, very slick, and you've also got a hidden handle in the back seats here, which is just behind the window. And around the back, you have again, a very, very friendly panda-like face. You've got that black bar again that is highlighted by two LED tail lights. It's a cool looking thing. I don't think there's anything on Britain's roads that looks like it today, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's going to be quite popular with buyers. The Honda E is an urban living car, and that's one of the excuses that Honda gives for why the boot is so compact. The official figure is 171 litres, which is pretty damn tiny, but you also need to take into consideration these two bags, which contain the charging equipment. There's a little bit more storage underneath the boot floor, but I don't really know what you could put in there. It's not even like you could put a brolly in there. Yes, you can fold the rear seats flat to open up a bit more room, but it's not exactly the car that you would take on a family holiday. Inside the Honda E's cabin, and my goodness, there is just so much to take in. I think the best place to start off with is just the overall design. Now, Honda says that it wanted the car to basically feel like you are in a lounge when you get in it, and I think they've done an excellent job. I'm getting so tired of cars being kitted out with leather and relatively dull interiors, and this just feels modern and fresh, and it's nice to just not be surrounded by dead cows. And I'm not a vegan or anything, I'm just bored of it. So the things I particularly like are, you've got these cloth seats and they feel really plush. They almost feel like the cases that you get for a Google Pixel phone. Around the center console here and on the dashboard, you've got this kind of matte wood finish, which is really, really lovely. The plastics aren't the greatest quality. They're a little bit scratchy. You won't be touching it that often, but they don't look particularly pleasant. Not bad, but not amazing. The buttons, however, are a slightly higher grade of plastic. And look at this, we have physical dials. I'm getting so fed up of touchscreen everything that it's nice to have physical dials for the air conditioning and a physical dial for the volume. Although some of the car settings are controlled through dials and buttons, you may have noticed that there is a massive digital display in front of me. In fact, it actually comprises of 5 screens. Those are 2 displays for the wing mirrors, then you have 2 infotainment screens, one for the passenger and one for the driver, and then you've got a digital instrument cluster behind the steering wheel. Why do you need 2 infotainment displays? Well, it's so if you're using the navigation menu, your passenger could maybe change music on the fly. But you can actually swap the displays around. So if you were concentrating on driving, let's say you're cruising along the M25 and there's traffic just everywhere, you can swap over the nav menu to the passenger and they can program it for you. I think that is a really neat feature. I'll be honest, it's not the greatest infotainment system I've ever used. It's kind of a mix between being too basic and a little bit old-fashioned. When you're in a car that feels so modern and techie, it's a shame that the sat-nav system feels like it has come out of the mid-2000s. Let's talk storage. So there's a decent amount of storage in here. You've got 3 little trays back here that also double up as cup holders. You have a 4th cup holder down here when you pull on this little faux leather toggle. There's a little pouch below the dashboard, and above that sits 2 USB ports, an HDMI socket. That's right, you can connect an entertainment device in here and watch it through your infotainment screen. You have to be stationary when to do so, but that is such a cool feature. I don't think I've seen that in any other car. Above that, you've got a 12-volt outlet, and if you're wanting to bring something a little bit more heavy duty along, you have a 3-pin plug socket. The driving position is great. You've got quite a lot of flexibility. I would like maybe a little bit more adjustment with the steering wheel, maybe bring it towards me just a little bit further, but as it currently stands, it's not too bad. The view out is absolutely brilliant. I was expecting it to be a little bit dark and dingy when I saw the size of these A and B pillars, but in all fairness, it's a really airy car, especially with the sunroof. One possible improvement to make in the future is the positioning of the digital display. I absolutely love it. I think it's so cool and it does feel particularly techie. However, perhaps it does impede in forward visibility just a little bit. Maybe in the future, if they were able to mount it just a little bit lower, you might have a slightly clearer view out the front, but that is absolutely nitpicking. It is fine to look out of. You know what, I'm really surprised of how much room there is here in the back. I measure in at 180 centimeters and I've probably got just over somewhere between 5 and 10 centimeters to go. So if you're 6 foot, you might struggle a little bit. You might have to lean forward somewhat. Legroom isn't too bad either. Again, the driver's seat is currently in my position and I've got absolutely loads of room. There are also ISOFIX points, so if you're carrying a baby in the back, you can fit a child seat. There are no pop-off caps, so you'll have to find the ISOFIX points by feeling around underneath the seat. Storage-wise, you've got a few things to look out for here. You've got obviously your 2 nets at the back of the seats. You've got cup holders in each door. You could also nab one of the cup holders from the center console. And there's also 2 charging sockets back here. So if you are running low and you've bought a USB cable, you can just plug it in the back here. The Honda E also has a ridiculously tight turning circle. So you could just keep looping round and round if you miss your junction. This is what will make it a brilliant urban car, because I find myself getting lost all the time. And so if I want to spin around, I don't have to dive up a load of roads. I can just make a nice, simple turning. Another really neat feature about the Honda E is the parking assist. So if you're in a car park and you spot an open space, what you can do is press the park assist button on the dashboard here, and it'll ask you to drive up along past it. So if we just do that now, I've seen a space. Okay, so it's found a space, and what I have to do is I have to select it on the screen, and now what it wants me to do is press the brake and then tap the parking assist button again. Now this isn't a fully autonomous system, so you do still have to hold your hands on the steering wheel and look into your mirrors, but it's going to be really nifty. So let's see how it works. Okay, foot off the brake, and right, first thing it's going to do is line things up. I really hope it gets this right, because at the moment we're parking next to a new Aston Martin DBX. So I'm keeping an eye on the virtual mirrors as well. They actually dip down a little bit as well, so you can see how the car's doing, and wow. I'm really impressed with that. This parking space doesn't have any white lines, but it hasn't fooled the car whatsoever. It's parked really neatly between the DBX and the car to my right, the Kia e-Niro, a review of which you can find next week on Yes Auto. The standard Honda E carries a price tag of £26,660 after the £3,000 plug-in car grant has been applied. It's equipped with a 35.5 kilowatt hour battery that's good for a range of up to 136 miles on a single charge. The £29,160 Advanced model packs the same battery and range, though adds in a few cool features such as parking pilot and heated front seats. Both cars come with a single electric motor over the rear wheels, delivering 315 Nm of torque, with the base car producing 134 brake horsepower, while the Advance ups that to 152. On the road in the Honda E, and it's difficult to know where to start because there's just so much to talk about. So I think the thing I noticed the most of when I first stepped in this thing are the digital wing mirrors. I've actually managed to adapt to these wing mirrors quite quickly, and that's because you're constantly being relayed information. I can see, as I'm driving past a queue of cars now, even in my peripheral vision, I can see them streaking by. So your eye is naturally drawn towards there in the first place. So with the elephant in the room out of the way, what's it like to drive? Well, it's just exactly what I wanted from an electric car. This is such a tight feeling EV. The interior quality is so good, so you feel like you're behind the wheel of something plush, and the most important thing is it's really quiet. I know that sounds obvious because there's no engine burbling away in the background, but when you drive an EV, you usually hear the wind noise more because there's nothing to cover it up. But as there are no big wing mirrors on this car, there's, again, less resistance, so you don't hear the wind nearly as much as you would on a conventional car or a conventional EV. There are so many cool things in here, but another really cool thing is the digital rear view mirror. Now, as standard, it's just a regular mirror, but if you flick this at the bottom, then you'll get a digital display. Like the wing mirrors, it's absolutely fine. If anything, it's clearer than the regular mirror, because the regular mirror is quite dark and it's got like a dark tint to it, but if I flick it up, it's much clearer and much easier to see what's behind me. So if anything, I might just leave it in that setting. Right, we're coming up to a national speed limit. Here we go. I'm doing 20 miles an hour and then that's 60. Again, it's not going to outpace supercars, but it's just funny. It's such a small little car and you expect it to be so gutless because that's what a lot of city cars are like, but it's just fun. It backs up the car's fun character. Now, if you're new to electric cars, you may not know that they have a feature called regenerative braking, which is where when you're off the accelerator, the car will slow itself down and recuperate some of the power to top up the batteries. On most cars, you'll have different modes for battery regen. So if you want to recover more battery when you lift off the accelerator, you can put it in that mode and the deceleration will be a little bit more noticeable. If you want to smooth things out, you can reduce it and you won't save as much power, but the drive will be a little bit more fluid. On the Honda E, you can change the severity of the regen using these little paddles behind the steering wheel. So instead of changing gear, pressing right to up the gear and left to change down, because there is no conventional gearbox in here, you basically pull the right button to smooth things out and the left button to make the regeneration more severe. But even in its most efficient mode, you're not going to be leaning forward every time you take your foot off the accelerator. You could play a little game with it. So when you're coming up to a T-junction or a braking zone, you could pull the paddles and do all the braking on regen, only using the brake to stop right at the end of it. It's a fun game, and the best part about it is you'll be saving power and money. So what about battery range? Well, the test that I've been doing has been very much mixed conditions. I've been on stretches of dual carriageway and I've also been on small lanes at 30 miles an hour. So you've got a good idea of what the car will be like in different situations, and the battery seems to be doing an absolutely superb job. I'm not driving the smoothest either. You know, I'm trying to enjoy my time with the Honda E, so I'm putting my foot down at times, perhaps a little bit harder than you should, and I'm getting exactly what I would expect with the battery. It's not the biggest range in the world, but then again, the Honda E isn't designed to be an everyday family car where you'll be going back and forth to Edinburgh every day. It's designed as an urban runabout. And as well, bear in mind that a lot of people, when they get an electric car, they also get a wall charger. So unlike a petrol car where you'd need to run to the pumps every time you need to fill it up, if you just arrive at home in your electric car and top it up overnight, you'll always have a full charge every morning. So I don't see the car's limited range of being that much of a factor. Yes, I would rather it was more. I'd rather you had a solid 250 miles of range, but I can't see it being that much of an issue. As a car to jump in and drive and live with, the Honda E just seems like a really great buy. I'm going to be really disappointed when I have to hand this car back at the end of the day, because I really want one now. I've really enjoyed my time with the Honda E. It was a car I was so excited about driving, and now that I've finally got behind the wheel of it, I think it's not only lived up to my expectations, but I think it's exceeded them. It's such a fun thing to drive, and just look at it. Look how happy it is. And at a time of where electric cars are either too weird or too quirky or too boring. But I think the Honda E strikes the balance of being an interesting car while also being a stylish one at the same time. It's by no means perfect. I think the infotainment system could do with a serious upgrade. And with prices starting at over £26,000, it's not exactly the cheapest thing out there at all. But does any of that matter, really? I don't think so. I'm going to hold judgment until I'm able to have the car in for a week and really put it to the test. But as it currently stands, if I had the money and I was looking for an electric city runabout, I'd choose that thing. It's got to be Mario. Let's do it. I'll be a noob only to start off with the mushroom cup. This is so strange.